Hi, my name is Lizzy, and in this presentation, I will walk you through the process of developing the Lightbulb flashcard app, discussing all of the ups and downs I went through along the way. To begin with, here is our user persona, Alicia. She's based upon my research finding and is the summation of our target audience in human form, someone I will refer to throughout the presentation. As you can see, she's a 21-year-old biology student living and studying in Bristol. As a third-year student, her life unsurprisingly revolves around studying, which includes learning new vocabulary. She regularly studies on the bus to and from uni using an array of techniques, including flashcards. She studied most in the 2 months prior to her midterm and her end-of-term exam. With such an intensive study schedule, Alicia is looking for a way of easily learning new vocab while on the move in a fun and motivational way. She wants a vocab learning system that allows her to learn and file vocabulary for different modules, topics, and tests, and allows her to measure and track her progress. It's not all about learning. Alicia is a university student trying to balance doing well in her studies with enjoying and making the most of her last year of her university experience. So the problem: if Alicia wants to make the most of her university experience, she needs a way to learn, test, and store new vocabulary on the move, so she can make good use of the time she spends traveling every day. The hypothesis: by creating an app that allows Alicia to create bespoke flashcards to test learning, manage and archive cards, and view progress in a visual manner, we can help Alicia to learn efficiently on the move, to track her progress, and to seamlessly integrate vocab learning into her study schedule. From this hypothesis statement, there are 4 key tasks that Alicia must be able to perform in order for the app to solve her vocabulary learning problems: to create bespoke flashcards, to test learning, to manage and archive cards, and to view progress. I've identified the primary task is to create bespoke flashcards. Without this, none of the other tasks are achievable. The second task is to test learning. Without this, measuring and therefore tracking progress would also not be possible. These 2 tasks will be the fundamentals of my app. Here is the user flow for my primary task, to create vocabulary flashcards. This took me a while to perfect, constantly cutting it down and refining it until it depicted the user's happy path, the fastest route from entry point to success. Here you can see the initial wireframes for my primary task. I found wireframing was a challenge. I had to constantly remind myself that it was sketching to design functionality and not to create beautiful pictures to stick on my wall. Letting go of that desire to create perfect designs was tough, but it allowed me to be more open to additional revisions and less precious about my initial designs. Here you can see the progression of my wireframes from rapid wireframing using the crazy 8 and dot methods, to refined frames, and finally to adding the onboarding process, something that I initially overlooked but would turn out to be critical in helping my users navigate the app. The secondary task was to take a test. The user flow for this was more complex, as it had to take into account differing lengths of tests, allowing users to repeat sections of the user flow. Again, it took multiple revisions to reach the happy path. For the wireframes for my secondary task, I took a lot of inspiration from a competitor analysis, trying to make sure the wireframes were uncluttered to maintain users' focus on the test and avoid any distractions that might halt their progress. While putting together my prototype, I found myself adding more and more wireframes that were essential to the app, if not for the primary and secondary tasks. This included things like splash screens and sign-up process, elements that users have come to expect in a high-quality app. Next to usability testing. I was pretty confident going into this stage that users would navigate my app with ease, having absolutely no problem with the scenario tasks. I had, of course, designed it with them in mind, so where could I go wrong? It's safe to say that user testing opened my eyes to the understanding that my assumptions were not always the same as my users. 5 participants took part in my user testing, and they completed each of 4 tasks: to sign up, to create a flashcard deck, to add cards to their deck, and finally to do a test. I noted down any errors they made during the process. I recorded errors across tasks 1, 3, and 4, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't shocked to find that my carefully designed prototype had so many mistakes. In task 1, I found that most users didn't understand their Facebook and Google sign-up buttons, and that no one chose to use them. While this didn't hinder them in completing the task, it did mean that they weren't serving any functionality to the user, and were therefore a waste of space as they were. One user, when asked to sign in, accidentally clicked the login and skipped the sign-up process altogether, kindly highlighting that I had missed out the entire login page. No users struggled with the second task. However, I think this may be more because it was too short. It only involved 1 tap to complete. I think in future I will ensure that my tasks are all long enough that I can get significant information from them. Task 3 had an array of issues, including issues with the onboarding that encouraged users to swipe rather than tap, users mistaking the back title for a go back button, and most concerningly, users got stuck flicking between the front and back of the card without anyone filling in the back of the card without prompting. For the final task, the issues were just as critical but easy to fix. First of all, users couldn't access the test from the deck page. Several of them didn't realize that you would have to save the deck in order to test it. Users also had difficulty with the card selection page, but this was more of a cosmetic issue with the prototype than a functionality issue, and users did not get stuck here for long. The final problem was that users couldn't escape one of the prompt pages because I'd forgotten to link the close button to anything. Because of this, I had to exit the prototype and start the entire test again from the beginning. All in all, user testing showed me that no matter how carefully I create my prototype, there will be mistakes, and that they are so important to making improvements. Here you can see, based on my user testing, here are my recommended revisions, starting in the top left. Adding a login page so that users can't skip the sign-up process if they don't have an account, making our Facebook and Google logos more recognizable, and adding additional text to encourage users to use these. Changing the cards to say side 1 and 2 rather than front and back to avoid any unnecessary confusion. Altering the wording of the onboarding and creating wireframes with new onboarding for users' second visit. Introducing a test function to the deck page, and finally, linking the close prompt button so that users don't get trapped within my prototype. Here you can see the amendments I made to the wireframes based on the recommendations on the previous slide to reduce and remove user errors. It's not been an easy journey, but it's been eye-opening. So I've summarized some of my key learnings from the process and I will continue to use throughout the rest of this course. 1, plan before beginning wireframe sketching. Without a good plan, sketching can be time-consuming and inefficient. I found that when working on my initial designs, I began my crazy eight method, drew loads and loads of sketches without having a necessary plan in place to know exactly what pages I was going to need. This took a lot of time where actually, had I planned further, it could have been far more concise. 2, don't spend too much time creating initial wireframes. This makes me more reluctant to revise and improve them. Learning from my own mistakes here, I spent a lot of time on my initial wireframes, making them look nice, making them more match, and then when I received feedback that there were alterations to be made, I was hesitant. I didn't want to make those revisions. When I began taking less time on each wireframe, I was more open to making the necessary revisions to improve the app. 3, make sure that the tasks used in the user testing are long enough to gather significant feedback. As I mentioned previously, my second task was particularly short. It was only 1 click in order for the users to complete it. While users were able to complete this task, it didn't necessarily give me the useful information that I required to improve the app. 4, keep an open mind and remember that what seems obvious to you, the creator, may not be obvious to all new users without your insight. And finally, make sure to take notes of everything during user testing, not just the errors. If they go through a task particularly easily, that's also important to know. It's particularly important because as you do further rounds of user testing, you want to ensure that you recognize the areas that are particularly good so that you don't alter them in later revisions. Okay, that's everything. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.